Novak.
This is VOA News. I'm Joe Ramsey. Poland said Monday it was willing to send German-made Leopard tanks to Ukraine without approval, but would first seek permission from Berlin as Kyiv presses its allies for heavy weaponry. European nations agreed to spend another 500 million euros to arm Kyiv in the latest boost to the multi-billion-dollar drive to help Ukraine push back Russian forces. Turkey's president says no support for Sweden's NATO bid. AP correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports.
Recep Tayyip Erdogan says Sweden shouldn't expect support for NATO membership following weekend protests in Stockholm by an anti-Islam activist and pro-Kurdish groups. Erdogan has slammed Rasmus Paludan's Quran-burning protest on Saturday, saying it was an insult to everyone, especially to Muslims. Erdogan also criticised Sweden for pro-Kurdish protests, where demonstrators waved flags, including those of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK, which has waged a decades-long insurgency against Turkey. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
A former high-ranking FBI counterintelligence official has been indicted on charges he helped a Russian oligarch in violation of U.S. sanctions. AP correspondent Julie Walker reports.
Charles McGonigal, the former special agent in charge of the FBI's New York Counterintelligence Division, is accused in an indictment of working with a former Soviet diplomat turned Russian interpreter on behalf of Oleg Deripaska, a Russian billionaire energy magnate. McGonigal, who had supervised investigations of Russian oligarchs, including Deripaska, before retiring in 2018, allegedly worked to have Deripaska's sanctions lifted in 2019. Julie Walker, New York.
This is VOA News. U.S. health officials on Monday proposed all healthy Americans should get one COVID-19 shot annually, similar to the flu shot. Reuters correspondent Freddie Joyner reports.
In briefing documents ahead of a meeting on Thursday, the FDA made clear it hopes annual shots will encourage more Americans to roll up their sleeves.
We need to do something different because right now it's confusing.
Infectious diseases physician Dr. Bruce Farber.
And one consistent, unified message with a standard schedule, I think, would make a lot of sense.
The proposal will be examined by an FDA expert panel on Thursday. If the panel votes in favor of the proposal and is backed by the FDA and the CDC, Pfizer and Moderna's bivalent vaccines, which target both the Omicron and the original variants, would be used for all COVID vaccine doses and not just as boosters.
Reuters correspondent Freddie Joyner. Kenya's opposition leader Raila Odinga on Monday called on supporters to resist the government of President William Ruto, saying its disputed election last August had robbed it of its legitimacy.
We as Azimio reject the 2022 election results totally.
Ruto's coalition eked out a near victory over Odinga in the election, whose result announcement was accompanied by chaotic scenes to the National Tallying Center, and his victory was upheld by the Supreme Court. Both leaders, who have dominated politics in East Africa's biggest economy for decades, settled into an uneasy calm after the electoral contest, but Odinga's coalition said last week it had found new evidence of rigging. Burkina Faso has decided to end a military accord that allowed French troops to fight militants on its soil, the government said on Monday. Reuters correspondent David Doyle reports.
Burkinabe National Television reported that the government had suspended a 2018 military accord with Paris on January 18th, giving France 1 month to withdraw its troops. French President Emmanuel Macron said he was awaiting clarifications from transitional President Ibrahim Traoré. But on Monday, government spokesman Rimtalba Jean-Emmanuel Ouedraogo said, "We don't see how to be more clear than this." The vision of the Burkinabe transitional government, according to Ouedraogo, is for the country to defend itself.
Reuters correspondent David Doyle. According to friends and U.S. media reports, the 72-year-old suspected gunman in Saturday night's mass shooting at a Los Angeles area dance studio had been a regular there, giving informal lessons and even meeting his ex-wife at the venue. I'm Joe Ramsey.
This is VOA News. I'm Jeff Custer. In the face of intense pressure from its allies, Germany apparently is still mulling over the delivery of high-tech Leopard 2 main battle tanks that Ukraine and its Western supporters believe could boost Kyiv's fight against Russian invaders. Meanwhile, Poland has officially requested permission from Germany to transfer its own German-made Leopard 2 battle tanks to Ukraine. Associated Press correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports.
Defence Minister Mariusz Błaszczak has officially requested permission from Germany to transfer its Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine, where they can help fight Russia's invasion. Błaszczak also appealed to Germany to join the coalition of countries supporting Ukraine with Leopard 2 tanks, a reference to recent pressure on Berlin to send some of their own tanks. Germany has hesitated to take that step, despite Ukraine's pleas. Berlin has received Warsaw's request, Błaszczak said in a tweet, though German officials have not immediately confirmed that. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Several senior Ukrainian government officials lost their jobs Tuesday. Reporting from Kyiv, correspondent Anna Chernakova told VOA's Flashpoint Ukraine program the latest on the scandals.
National Anti-Corruption Bureau is doing quite an effective and quite an active job. For instance, it was quite a big scandal that the deputy of the Minister of Infrastructure was caught with a bribe of $400,000. What we're also hearing, another second, let's put it this way, second biggest scandal was an investigation by Ukrainian journalists about the supply of food to the front line. And we have recognition of the person from the ministry who was responsible for this. In addition, we have some recognitions from the president office, particularly one of the deputies of the head of the office.
This is VOA News. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell Tuesday warned that space could become a battlefield, caught up in the increasing geopolitical competition. Speaking at the 15th European Space Conference in Brussels Tuesday, Borrell expressed his concerns over the race to access and control space.
Space has become a key strategic domain. It's not affecting only all aspects of our life, but this is a key resources or a key battlefield for security and defense. That the geopolitical competition in which we see on the Earth is now increasingly projected up in space, and that we need to prepare for an increasingly still more competitive and contested space environment.
Borrell warned Europe should be prepared for potential Russian attacks on EU satellites and urged the bloc to use a coordinated approach to address its threats. A World War II-era map has sparked a treasure hunt in a small village in the Netherlands. Associated Press correspondent Ed Donahue reports.
Prospectors have descended on Omrin, population 715. It's all over a hand-drawn map with a red letter X, purportedly showing the location of a buried stash of precious jewelry looted by the Nazis in 1944.
A bank building gets hit, and the vault gets hit as well, and all the possessions that were in the vault are on the streets.
Dutch National Archives researcher Annette Walken says German soldiers pocketed what they could.
Around April 45, when the Allies are moving in, it's getting a bit hot under their feet and they decide to bury the treasure just where they are.
Holes in the ground can be spotted by people looking for treasure. Nothing has been found yet. This local woman says if they hear something, they head toward it. But I don't think it's good that they just dug into the ground. I'm Ed Donahue.
Brazilian police plan to indict a Colombian fish trader as the mastermind behind the killings of indigenous expert Bruno Pereira and British journalist Dom Phillips in June of 2022. According to the investigation, Ruben Dario da Silva Villar provided the ammunition used to kill the pair, made phone calls before and after the crime to the confessed killer, and paid the killer's lawyer. He denies any involvement. Pereira and Phillips were traveling in a remote area of the Amazon when they disappeared, and their bodies were recovered after the confessions. Phillips was researching a book on how to save the world's largest rainforest. Police in India's Gujarat state say 6 people were killed during the January 16th kite festival there after their throats were sliced by glass-coated kite strings. 3 children were among those killed after the glass-encrusted razor-sharp strings were used in the festival. From Washington, I'm Jeff Custer. This is VOA.